My daughter-in-law smirked when her family met her naive. Father-in-law, her jaw dropped when I revealed my true identity. The house still smelled faintly of lavender, the cleaner Ruth used every Saturday, the one that made wood shine like it remembered her touch. Morning light cut through the blinds, landing on the cedar chest she loved. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. Evan stood by the kitchen island, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. Serena leaned against the counter, nails perfect, voice casual as a blade. "We've been talking," she said. "The house is wasted space. Near the train, good resale value. Dad says we should modernize, open it up." I stared at her, the coffee going cold in my hand. "Modernize? Knock down a few walls. Make it livable," she said, smiling like it was a favor. Evan's throat moved, but no sound came. "Ruth's walls," I said. "You want to knock down Ruth's walls." Serena's eyes didn't flicker. "They're just walls, Walter. Sentiment doesn't sell. I guess 99% of you will hear this. Sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you, and where are you listening?" The place had that polished, trying too hard charm, Edison bulbs, exposed brick, every table topped with succulents that looked too symmetrical to be real. Summit Cafe and Bar. That's what the chalkboard said, scrawled in faux handwriting next to the words, "Truffle omelets, $27." I arrived early. Old habit. Fire captains hate being late, even to peacetime events. Evan and Serena were already at the table. Her parents, Victor and Elaine, were there too, bright smiles, expensive restraint. Victor lifted his mimosa as I sat down, as though he were greeting a subordinate. "Walter," he said, that smooth corporate baritone. "Finally meet the famous father. Public service, right? Admirable. But not strategy, not real leverage." He said it like a compliment, like he was handing me a participation trophy. Serena reached for her Dior handbag and patted it as if on cue. "Evan and I were just talking about upgrading the place," she said. "Open, concept solves everything. Dad says property is power." Evan chuckled, quick and nervous. "Dad, Victor's on the country club's management committee. He could help if we ever, sold." Sold. The toast knife felt heavy in my hand. I buttered a piece, slow, even strokes, just to keep from saying something sharp. Serena tilted her head. "Your house feels, nostalgic." Victor smiled at her, proud. "There's modern," he said, "and then there's sentimental clutter." It landed soft to them. To me, it landed hard. Something in my chest pulled tight, not rage. Memory. For a moment I was back in smoke. Sirens in the distance, the metallic taste of fear, the calm that comes before collapse. I looked down at the table. A crack ran through the cafe's concrete floor, branching into the shape of a wishbone. I couldn't tell which side I was supposed to pull. Elaine, polite and oblivious, broke the silence. "Evan tells us you're consulting now? How nice to have a hobby after retiring so young." I smiled. "Keeps me busy." She laughed softly. "Busy is good." They didn't know that my consulting was a private retainer with a safety equipment manufacturer, $40,000 a month to quietly evaluate their municipal contracts. They didn't know that every recommendation I wrote could save a department $1 million or cost a company $2. They didn't know because I didn't tell them. Evan reached for his water glass. "Dad likes to keep things simple," he said. Serena leaned closer to her mother. "That's what's so sweet about him." Sweet. I caught Evan's eyes, just for a second. He looked away. The waiter came to refill the coffee. The smell was burnt espresso, too bitter, too strong. Ruth used to brew it right at home. She'd say, "Buy lilies after shift, Walt. Make the air quiet." The air here wasn't quiet. It was crowded with their words, their laughter, the invisible distance they drew between service and success. I sat back, studied their reflections in the glass wall. Victor talking about leverage, Serena about square footage, Evan about nothing at all. And I realized this was the first open dismissal of my life's work. Not an argument. Just erasure. So I nodded at the right places, smiled when the check came. I paid it with my citizen watch ticking like a metronome, the rhythm steady, familiar. Not because they couldn't afford it. Because I wanted to. Because men like Victor think silence is surrender. It isn't. It's planning. Serena's text came 2 days after brunch. Family dinner at my parents' Friday sex. Treative. Casual. That smiley face felt like a warning label. I decided to arrive as they already believed I was a simple, harmless man, out of step with their world. So I took the Lincoln, the old one, the paint dulled at the edges, the radio humming static between stations. I wore my oldest sport coat, the one Ruth used to say smelled like cedar and engine oil. Victor and Elaine's Colonial sat behind a hedge trimmed sharp enough to draw blood. Circular drive, 2 BMWs, 1 Porsche, and not a speck of dirt in sight. The air smelled of peonies and furniture polish. Elaine opened the door before I could knock. Air kiss, perfume like champagne. "Walter, you made it. We never know with traffic, do we?" "Not unless we leave early," I said. Her laugh was light, tinny. Victor followed, hands tucked in his blazer pockets, chin high. "You kept your vintage look. Charming." Serena, appearing over his shoulder, bright and precise. "Dad, didn't I say? He's old school. Doesn't even use Venmo." Evan's chuckle sounded like paper tearing. "He likes paper." Victor smirked. "Paper is for people without a balance sheet." I felt my jaw loosen, then lock again. Ruth's Mont Blanc pen flashed through my mind, silver and black, her graduation gift to me. Paper built our house. "Guess I'm sentimental," I said. They led me into a dining room that could have doubled as a museum exhibit. Polished walnut table, chandelier dimmed to an expensive glow, crystal glasses waiting for the next insult. We Saturday, Serena beside Evan, Victor at the head. I was placed at the far end, like the distant relative you only invite out of guilt. Elaine poured wine. Cabernet. Victor says it pairs beautifully with humility. I smiled, just enough. He must have a cellar full then. Evan coughed. Victor didn't. Dinner unfolded with the kind of small talk that isn't small at all. "So, Walter," Victor began between bites of steak, "retirement treating you well? Must be strange going from all that adrenaline to, well, gardening." "I keep busy," I said. Serena leaned in. "He still mows his own lawn. Isn't that sweet?" Elaine nodded approvingly. "Hands on men are a dying breed." Victor sipped his wine. "So is leverage if you don't know how to use it." I dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin. "Some of us built our leverage with our hands, not our signatures." That shut him up for maybe 4 seconds. The chandelier flickered one bulb, blinking like it had a nervous tick. Each time the air conditioner kicked on, it stuttered again. "Not de sight. A test." I watched them closely. How they laughed too loud when money came up. How they shifted when I mentioned the word service. How Serena's eyes darted to Evan's wrist, checking the watch she bought him for Christmas. Every move told me who they were, and what they thought I wasn't. Elaine asked about my little consulting hobby. I told her it helped keep my mind sharp, my calendar full. She didn't ask who I consulted for. People who assume you're powerless never ask the right questions. When dessert came, chocolate mousse in cups shaped like trophies, I let them talk. About stocks, about travel, about what's worth investing in. I sat back, nodding. Learning. By dessert, I knew exactly which mask to wear and when to take it off. The dining room gleamed like it had been polished for inspection. Lacquered table, 12 chairs, placed cards in perfect loops of gold ink. Even the jazz felt expensive, low and shapeless, the kind you play to keep conversation civilized while the knives get sharper. Victor tapped his wineglass with a butter knife. "Walter," he said, tone casual but eyes precise, "what's retirement like without a portfolio?" There it was, the first open slap. I set my fork down gently, the clink softer than my pulse. "It's peaceful." Serena leaned forward, her smile sweet enough to rot enamel. "He has the house, Dad. The cute one near the train. For now." Elaine tilted her head in faux concern. "Downsizing can be liberating, Walter. Less to worry about." "Oh." Evan stayed silent, thumb moving on his phone, the faint tapping counting down something only he could see. I lifted my glass. Water, not wine. "It's enough." Victor leaned back, swirling his Cabernet like it contained prophecy. "Enough," he repeated. Such a relative term. He looked at Evan. "You must plan, son, especially with older parents." Serena laughed, That sharp, nervous laugh she used to decorate insults. Dad's helping us think legacy. Legacy. My word. My wife's word. The word carved into the plaque under the oak tree at the firehouse. Hearing it from their lips felt like theft. I smiled once, slow, deliberate. The kind of smile that used to calm rookies standing too close to the smoke. Planning's important, I said. Just depends on what you're building. Victor didn't hear the warning. Or maybe he thought warnings were for other people. He raised his glass. To new generations, he said, and smarter investments. Evan hesitated, then lifted his own. Serena followed. The crystal clinked like glass on bone. I didn't join them. Instead, I traced the faint coffee ring on Victor's perfect mahogany table, imagining the years of fingerprints erased by polish, the quiet effort it took to make wood gleam like money. Ruth used to rest her hand on my forearm at moments like this. Graduations, promotions, funerals when my temper threatened to step out ahead of my judgment. Breathe, pick your moment. So I did. Elaine asked if I'd ever considered selling. You could move closer to us, she said. There's a lovely retirement community just near the country club. Serena chimed in. Or something modern. You know, open layout, big windows. You've earned it. Their faces were soft, kind even, the way people look at a man they've already decided is finished. Evan still hadn't looked up from his phone. The glow from the screen reflected in his glass, slicing his eyes into blue fragments. I watched him a long moment. The son Ruth and I raised to stand tall, now folding himself into quiet, polite shapes to fit another man's table. Thank you, I said finally. I'll think about it. Victor smiled, satisfied. Elaine reached for dessert plates. Serena topped off her wine. The room hummed again with jazz, with confidence, with the illusion of control. I chewed slowly, tasting nothing, building a plan in silence. They wanted a number. I'd give them time instead. A clock. Not digital. The kind you wind by hand, steady, deliberate. I left before coffee, claiming early mornings as my excuse. No one stopped me. On the way out, I brushed the wall near the doorway, felt for the tiny flicker of vibration that hums through a house when people mistake comfort for power. Not rage, not yet. They wanted a number. I left them with a clock ticking toward a night they wouldn't forget. I got home before dark. The house greeted me the way it always did, quiet, respectful, holding its breath. The porch light flickered once, as if to say, steady now. Inside, the air still carried Ruth's faint lavender scent. Something caught between memory and furniture polish. I slipped off my shoes, hung my jacket, and walked straight to the study. The cedar box was waiting on the bookshelf. Ruth's box. The one she used for everything that mattered: birth certificates, the deed, trust papers, the first photo of Evan in turnout gear. The lid creaked when I lifted it, the smell of cedar sharp as truth. Inside, our living trust binder, Bank of America statements, the property deed, the Mont Blanc pen she'd used to sign them all. Her handwriting was still there on the divider tab, steady, neat, determined. I flipped through the pages until I reached the clauses. Transfer on death, occupancy restriction, no unauthorized modifications. Every line a brick in the wall between stewardship and theft. The refrigerator hummed louder when the AC clicked off. Funny how quiet can have its own rhythm. I opened my laptop and logged into the Ring portal. The clips were time-stamped and clean. Serena standing in my front yard, sunglasses on, phone to her ear. Yeah, the place near the train. Tiny, but we can knock down that wall, make it modern. Contractor says it's doable. My jaw tightened. Knock down that wall. She was already redesigning a house that wasn't hers. I downloaded the clip and saved it under a new folder. Documentation, family. Then I picked up my phone and called Dana. She answered on the second ring, crisp as always. Midtown Law, this is Dana. It's me, I said. Need a refresher on transfer on death designations and occupancy clauses. A pause. You're finally using those clauses we built? Not using. Honoring. I heard her keyboard tapping. You want me to pull the gala guest list too? Yes. Victor's charity thing. I want to know who's in the room before I walk in. She exhaled through her nose, a lawyer's version of a smile. You've been patient long enough. Patience isn't the same as permission. After the call, I drafted 2 short emails. One to Frank, my old union chair. Subject line, Quick update. Frank, good to catch up soon. Thinking about a community safety grant in Ruth's name. You'll like how this one lands. The second to Alicia, the general counsel at the manufacturer. Need to review my current NDA and advisory scope. Want to ensure personal matters stay firewalled from any future conflicts. Also, consider attending Victor's gala. Bring the donation card. Every move small, unremarkable. That's the point. No raised voices, no slammed doors. Revenge, when done right, sounds like paperwork sliding into place. I wrote one last message to Evan. Simple. Swing by this weekend. I've got something to show you. Bring Serena if she's free. No accusation. No heat. Just cadence. I closed the binder and rested my hand on the cover. The faint tick of Ruth's Omega echoed from the dresser upstairs. She'd worn it the day we signed these papers. She said it felt like writing a will for peace instead of death. When I finally stood, the house felt smaller. Not from fear, just from how neatly the walls could now hold a plan. Everything had its order again. Maple Ridge Country Club gleamed under its string lights like a promise written in cursive. White tent, crystal chandeliers suspended from beams, the scent of cut grass and bourbon drifting across the field. The kind of night where power wore linen and smiled politely. I arrived early, old habit again. Fire captains don't like surprises, especially not the kind served with champagne. Victor stood near the entrance, shaking hands like he was collecting fingerprints. "Good to see real capital at work," he said to one of the donors, his voice carrying just far enough to make sure everyone heard. I adjusted my cuff and stepped inside. The floorboards creaked faintly beneath the rented platforms. I nodded at a few familiar faces, 2 retired chiefs, a police lieutenant, a couple of city officials who'd written checks to the Ruth Hayes Fund years ago. Quiet acknowledgments, nothing theatrical. At the far table, Serena's family had already claimed their spotlight. Serena looked immaculate, emerald dress, champagne flute tilted just so. Evan hovered beside her, his tie a little too tight. I caught snippets as I approached. "Don't worry," Serena whispered to him, but not quietly enough. "Dad'll help with the loan?" Evan's smile tightened. "Serena, maybe not tonight." "We need leverage," she said. "That's what Dad keeps telling me." Leverage. They used that word like it was oxygen. I turned toward the event coordinator, a young woman in a black blazer with a clipboard and headset. "Excuse me," I said. "Could you confirm the 2-minute slot for the Ruth Hayes Community Safety Grant?" She scanned her list and nodded. "Of course, Captain Hayes. You're right after the Veterans Tribute." "Captain." Serena's head snapped up. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Evan looked between us, confused. Victor appeared, shaking my hand as though this were his stage. "Walter, glad you could make it. Always nice to see family support." I smiled. "Wouldn't miss it." The quartet began to play something soft and sweeping strings, moving like wind through a burning warehouse. I could almost smell smoke, could almost feel Ruth's hand on my shoulder, the same grounding weight she used to give me before every ceremony. The club's manager passed by and clapped my arm. "Good to see you again, Captain. The city still talks about that warehouse fire. How many men did you pull out that night?" "Enough," I said quietly. Serena blinked. Evan's brows drew together. Victor forced a polite laugh, unsure whether to interrupt. "I didn't realize you were a captain," Elaine said from behind her wine glass. "It was a long time ago," I said. "Still part of who I am." Victor shifted, suddenly less anchored. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "that's admirable. And what exactly is the Ruth Hayes grant again?" Before I could answer, the coordinator stepped up with her clipboard. "It's the Community Safety Fund that provides equipment to volunteer departments across the county. Mr. Hayes sponsors it personally." Victor's smile faltered. "Oh," Serena said, just a touch too quickly. "That's nice. Nice." I slipped my hands into my pockets, the way I used to when the flames got too close to see clearly. Counting beats. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Stay calm. Let them walk right into the moment. The mosquito near the gelato station light hovered in circles, trapped by its own attraction to the glow. When the MC tapped the mic, I finally stopped counting. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you, and where are you listening? The tent hummed like a live wire. Glasses clinked, whispers flickered. The quartet tuned their strings under the low light. Then the MC stepped forward, cheeks flushed with bourbon and nerves. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the mic, "tonight's program continues with a brief word from Captain Walter Hayes, representing the Ruth Hayes Community Safety Grant." The mic popped once, just enough to pull heads toward me. A few faces brightened in recognition. The fire chief, the union rep, Alicia Torres, the general counsel who'd quietly flown in from the city. Others, the ones who only knew Victor's side of the world, looked curious or cautious. Behind me, the projector screen flickered on Ruth's face, filled the canvas, wind-blown hair and laughing eyes from a firehouse barbecue years ago. The photo wasn't perfect. That's what made it real. I cleared my throat. My wife believed community is an account you fund with behavior. Applause rose, polite at first, then softened into quiet. She also believed legacy isn't what you build, it's what you keep standing. Tonight, the Ruth Hayes Grant will outfit volunteer departments across the county with new thermal imagers. A few murmurs of approval. Victor looked vaguely annoyed, Serena attentive but tense. I continued, steady, no theatrics. "I want to thank our partners who made this possible: Alicia Torres, General Counsel of our manufacturing group, and Frank M., Chair of the Firefighters Union. They're people who keep receipts, not excuses." Frank stood just long enough to raise his glass. The police chief followed. I didn't need to name the amount. The gesture, the recognition, the alignment was enough. Money is loud. Credibility hums. From the corner of my eye, I saw Serena lean toward Evan, her voice a hiss dressed as a whisper. "Evan, why didn't you tell me?" He blinked, still staring at the screen. "I didn't know." That landed harder than anything I said. The coffee from earlier, the Pike Place I'd made before shaving, rose back in my throat, bitter but steady. I let it burn there. I stepped away from the mic, nodding once to the MC. The applause wasn't thunderous, just clean, real. As I returned to my seat, I felt the air change around our table. Victor adjusted his cufflinks, eyes darting toward the coordinator as if trying to piece together what had just happened. Elaine gave a fragile smile, the kind people wear when they realize they've underestimated someone at their own table. Serena's fingers trembled around her wineglass. She looked at me like I'd rewritten a rulebook she didn't know existed. I sat down without a word. Hands still, back straight. Around the tent, conversation shifted, quiet nods between people who actually worked for what they had. A city inspector told the chief he'd reach out about next quarter's training. A councilwoman jotted something on her napkin. My network, alive and invisible, doing what it did best, self-correcting. Across the table, Victor tried to restart the noise. "Well," he said too loud, "that was heartwarming. Always good to see service recognized." No one took the bait. The tent hummed with a new rhythm now, one he didn't control. The condensation from my water glass had left a faint ring under the microphone base. I pictured it there, spreading, marking territory on the white linen. Temporary, but impossible to ignore. I leaned back. "To Ruth," I said softly. Evan heard me. He raised his glass, unsure but sincere. Serena didn't move. I was almost to my chair when Victor rose for his own speech and tried to take the room back. The tent looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The lights seemed whiter, harsher, the air thinner. The quartet's soft jazz had turned into background noise for sharper words. Victor adjusted his cufflinks as the MC handed him the microphone. He smiled like a man about to explain the world to those lucky enough to listen. "Philanthropy," he began, pacing a little, "is meaningful when it modernizes value, not when it comforts the past." A ripple of polite claps. The kind that say, "We're not sure if this is rude, but we'll go along anyway." He gestured vaguely toward me without naming me. Too often we see gestures of nostalgia, beautiful. Yes, but nostalgia doesn't pay for innovation. We must reward forward thinking. A few heads turned my way. My chest tightened, but my face didn't move. I'd spent decades standing inside burning rooms. One more wouldn't kill me. Victor smiled wider. "Legacy is a nice word. But unless it creates leverage, it's just sentimentality." That word again, leverage. The family gospel. Then came the Q&A. A woman near the back raised her hand. How can younger families afford homes near the train line anymore? The roaming mic made its way across the tables. I saw Serena signal for it. Evan tried to stop her with a quiet shake of his head. She ignored him. She stood, shimmering in emerald under the fairy lights, every inch the hostess in waiting. "That's a great question," she said brightly. "We need turnover, right? Some people cling to houses they can't manage. It's sweet, but it blocks progress." The word hung there like smoke. Cling, sweet. I felt every eye flick toward me, the connection instant. They knew whose house she meant, the one near the train, the one she'd already described to contractors in a ring clip. Even the quartet stopped playing. Evan's jaw tightened. His lips parted, then closed again. Nothing. Silence. The kind that shames. And silence, I knew, was its own answer. Victor didn't stop her. He didn't have to. He just stood beside her, smiling like a sponsor who'd seen his ad placed right where it belonged. Elaine looked away, pretending to adjust her napkin. The donors looked at their plates, at their phones, anywhere but me. My hands stayed still on the table. My heart didn't. Ruth's voice whispered across the years, "Make the air quiet." So I inhaled. Deep, slow, enough to cool the room in my chest. The MC fumbled to move on. "Thank you, Mrs. Collins." A thoughtful comment. Thoughtful. I caught Alicia Torres's eye 2 tables over. She didn't smile, just a small nod. Frank, the union chair, raised his brows once. Both understood the kind of insult that had just been issued and who would answer it. The quartet started again. Too soft, too late. A tiny moth fluttered inside the lantern shade above our table, beating its wings against the glass, trapped by its own reflection. Victor leaned toward Serena, whispering something that made her laugh quick, brittle. Evan finally spoke, low enough for only me to hear. "Dad, she didn't mean—" "She did," I said quietly. He froze. I reached for my phone under the tablecloth and typed 3 short messages. Dana, Alicia, Frank. By the time the creme brulee cracked, the first door had already closed on them. Not yet, I thought. But soon, dawn. My kitchen held the kind of quiet that makes sound look guilty. Coffee steamed in the old Rutgers mug. The Wall Street Journal sat folded beside my MacBook Air. Ring notifications were muted like a sleeping dog. The refrigerator hummed deeper each time the AC shut off, a bass note to the morning. I opened the laptop and made the first move. Subject: Pilot pause, Marlowe Holdings, reputational review. 2. Alicia Torres, Hesse. Pause the pilot with Marlowe pending reputational review. See attached quote. I attached a 30-second clip someone at our table had filmed Serena in emerald under fairy lights saying, bright as a sermon, "Some people cling to houses they can't manage. It's sweet, but it blocks progress." I didn't annotate it. It didn't need help. Alicia's reply came fast, lawyer brief. Received, pausing immediately. Convening internal review. Second move. Text to Frank, our old union chair. Recommend we suspend any external modernization consulting ops tied to Marlowe Optics off. We'll revisit after ethics smoke clears. Typing dots. Then, copy, pulling invites. Proud of you, Cap. I took a sip of coffee. Bitter, steady. The Pike Place from habit Ruth used to tease that I could brew it blindfolded and still get the water temp right. Third move. A message to the Maple Ridge Facilities Chair through the member portal. Per policy section 4B, appearance of impropriety request tabling Marlowe's pool renovation, bid pending code clarifications, and committee conflict review, video context attached. His answer arrived like a gavel wrapped in velvet. Captain Hayes, per your note, we're tabling Marlowe's pool bid pending code clarifications. Appreciate the heads up. Consequences, I reminded myself, don't always explode. Sometimes they arrive as calendar updates. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email CC'd from Alicia. Victor had replied to her first message, brisk and confident, as if tone alone were solvent. Surely we can move past a misunderstanding. Alicia's response. We protect our brand. I pictured Victor reading that line at his kitchen island, the one with the waterfall marble and the bowl of decorative lemons. He'd call it overcautious. He'd say lawyers like a slur. He'd miss what mattered. Men and women who run into burning buildings tend to prefer contracts that don't. I pulled up my calendar and dragged a few items. Board call. Move to today. Ethics note, drafted. Donor follow-ups, scheduled. I added a one-word block at 18:30, the time Ruth and I always reserved for dinner, even in our busiest season. Boundaries. In the Ring archive, I rewatched Serena on my front walk, phone to her ear. Tiny, but we can knock down that wall, make it modern. She said we like paperwork, bowed to adjectives. I saved the clip to the documentation family folder and backed it up to an encrypted drive. Not malice. Record. The WSJ headline on mortgage rates stared up like a smirk. Progress wants cheap money. Character doesn't care. At 9:40 a.m., a pool subcontractor I barely knew texted, pulling my numbers from Marlowe's package. Too much chatter. No hard feelings. He added a thumbs up. The kind men use when they mean respectfully. I'm not going down with you. At 10:15, the facilities chair forwarded a note. Marlowe informed of tabling. They asked for reasons. I cited policy and clarifications. They'll be in touch. At 10:32, Alicia added me to a short list called Reputational Review Marlowe. No emojis, no exclamation points. Real rooms don't need confetti to count. I rinsed the mug and noticed a loose thread on the dish towel, tickling my wrist like a question I didn't owe an answer. Outside, a distant ambulance siren lifted and faded, a reminder that the world still had emergencies bigger than egos. By late morning, Victor tried one more email. Walter, I'm sure there's been crossed wire. We're aligned on progress. I let Alicia handle it. My fingerprints had already done their part. I wiped a ring of coffee from the countertop and set a fresh index card beside the laptop. Wrote the day's word with a pencil Ruth used to keep near the phone. Stewardship. Beneath it, 3 bullets. Pilot paused. Sponsorship suspended. Bid tabled. Click, click, click. By noon, Serena called Evan. By 2, Evan called me. By 5, I let it ring. The first call came at 7:42 a.m. Evan. Then again at 8:03. Then 8:10. Each time the same vibration against the counter, sharp and insistent, like a smoke alarm someone forgot to silence. I didn't pick up. By 8:30 I was in Midtown. Dana's office sat mid-floor, one of those glass box law firms perched above the noise but never free from it. Sirens threaded up from the avenue like restless blood. The plate glass windows caught every reflection: yellow taxis, scaffolding, people hustling below. She met me at the door with her usual half-smile. You look like a man who's decided to stop absorbing. I'm done taking inventory, I said. We sat across from each other in leather chairs that sighed when you leaned back. Dana opened the trust binder, already flagged with tabs the color of caution lights. We already have the transfer on death deed, she said, flipping to a page marked with a blue post. I'm adding an occupancy covenant. No renovations or contractors without your signed approval. And a no-work clause. They can't even repaint a hinge without you. Good, I said. Also, successor trustees. 2 signatures apart from Evan. That means nothing moves without collective consent. Make sure Frank's one of them, I said. She nodded, pen poised. You're ready for the board hearing? What board? Maple Ridge Facilities, she said, eyes still on the page. I got you on the agenda. Member safety concerns. Bring the video. I reached into my folder and slid the printed transcript across the table, the one from Serena's mic line at the fundraiser. She read it aloud quietly. Some people cling to houses they can't manage. Her eyes lifted. They said that in public? I nodded once. They mistook sentiment for weakness. Dana capped her pen with a deliberate click. Then let's make sentiment expensive. My phone buzzed again. Evan. Screen lit, then dark. I flipped it face down. He's probably panicking, Dana said. He'll calm down once he realizes panic doesn't move paper. Outside, a siren rose and fell. I watched the reflection of red lights dance across the conference table, bleeding over the stack of trust amendments. Ruth would have liked Dana methodical, no fluff. The day we first signed the original trust, Ruth smoothed the pages with both palms before handing the pen to me. Respect the paper, she said. It's the only thing that remembers what you meant. Oh. The conference phone on the table glowed with a small red light, mute, steady and patient, like a tiny lighthouse in fog. Dana finished writing, initialed the bottom of the page, then slid it toward me. All it needs now is your signature. I read every line before touching the pen. The ink felt heavier than it should. When I was done, I exhaled. Rules, not threats, I said. Exactly, she replied. That's what wins long games. I stood, closing the folder. The sirens outside had faded into city hum. Dana leaned back in her chair. You've built something solid, Walt. You're not protecting walls. You're protecting meaning. Meaning doesn't burn, I said. True, she said, but it needs a sprinkler system. I smiled for the first time that morning. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed again, voicemail this time. I listened halfway down. Evan's voice trembled between apology and defense. Dad, I didn't know she was going to say that. She was nervous. We can talk, okay, before this gets bigger. I ended the message and stared at the floor number ticking down. He'd get his talk. Just not the way he expected. He'd hear my answer in a room with minutes and a gavel. The morning started like any other Starbucks pike in my chipped Rutgers mug, Wall Street Journal folded to markets, MacBook Air humming on the kitchen table. The refrigerator kicked on with its usual tired sigh. Except today, I had a Facebook tab open. I never use Facebook. But the red notification dot pulsed like a heartbeat. Thread title: Country Club Q and a Did Anyone Else Hear That? First comment: The older gentleman's wife has a scholarship fund. Classy. Second: The other lady called seniors clingers. Yikes. And there it was, the clip. Serena in emerald green, voice bright, saying, Some people cling to houses they can't manage. The video had traveled faster than any press release ever could. The caption read, When legacy meets entitlement. I scrolled slowly, not gloating, measuring. Someone posted a still of Ruth's photo from the fundraiser slideshow. That's Captain Hayes' late wife, right? She ran the memorial BBQ every year. A reply underneath. Yeah, the woman who said that was his daughter-in-law. Unreal. The fruit fly that had been orbiting my coffee steam looped once, then dove straight into the mug. Daring. And dumber than it looked. A DM from the facilities chair popped up next. Captain Hayes, board took your safety memo seriously. For ethical appearance, we're holding Marlowe's bid. Appreciate the documentation. I typed back 2 words. Appreciate transparency. Then my phone buzzed. A text from a pool contractor. Pulling my sub-proposal. Too much smoke around Victor. No hard feelings. No hard feelings. The phrase people use right before distance becomes permanent. On Facebook, the comments multiplied. He talked about service. They talked about leverage. Entitlement isn't elegance. You can tell who built something and who just decorates it. By mid-morning, the clip had leaked into Nextdoor different usernames, same tone. Screenshots. Hashtags. Gossip disguised as civic duty. Then Serena posted a selfie from a Hamptons patio. Straw hat, sunglasses, an untouched cocktail. Caption: Progress can be unpopular. I stared at it a long moment. Within minutes a comment appeared. At whose expense? It vanished 5 minutes later. But screenshots last longer than apologies. By noon, Victor's LinkedIn feed had gone quiet. A few polite congratulations on older posts were suddenly replaced by silence. I didn't have to call anyone. The ecosystem handled itself. Vendors, donors, contractors, people with long memories and short tolerance for arrogance were already drawing their lines. The punishment wasn't destruction, it was isolation. I closed the laptop and sat for a while, watching light crawl across the countertop. The neighborhood would keep talking, and I wouldn't have to join in. That's the thing about communities, they correct themselves, eventually. I thought of Ruth's memorial at the VFW hall years ago. The burnt coffee, the cheap carnations, how people had shown up anyway. Not because they had to, but because showing up meant something. Community shows up with what it has. The house creaked the slow settling sound of wood and time. I stood and tightened a loose hinge on the kitchen cabinet. Small, useful, something I could fix. The phone buzzed again. A new email from the Maple Ridge board. Subject line: Facilities hearing agenda Thursday, 6 p.m. I reached for the pencil by the notepad and sharpened it until the shavings curled tight like secrets. Then I wrote 1 word on the index card beside the coffee mug. Boundaries. Not revenge. Not yet. Just structure. Because sometimes what you build isn't a house. It's a perimeter. The meeting room at Maple Ridge smelled faintly of polish and paper oak paneling, Flag in the corner, carafes of ice water sweating onto coasters, the kind of space where polite voices do sharp work. The chair tapped her pen. Captain Hayes, you asked to be recognized. He stood. 2 minutes. There's a rhythm to authority. Don't rush it. Don't explain it twice. I handed out packets, 12 in all, each with a blue cover page stamped. Appearance of impropriety facilities bid guidance. Behind it, a short memo, my letterhead, and one burned DVD labeled Serena Clip, Public Q&A, timestamp 2134. I pressed play. Serena's voice filled the room, bright, self-assured. Some people cling to houses they can't manage. It's sweet, but it blocks progress. The words hung like humidity. The chair cleared her throat. We appreciate the context, Captain. A member near the end of the table leaned forward. So Marlowe Holdings, the bidder, is directly connected to Miss Collins' father? Correct, I said. Victor Collins, CEO of Marlowe Holdings, sits on this committee's fundraising advisory panel. That's a conflict of interest. I'd suggest an independent ethics review before any further consideration. The silence broke just long enough for the motion. I moved to table all Marlowe Holdings bids pending review. Seconded. Oh? All in favor? Hands went up. Carried. The gavel sounded like punctuation. The chair turned to me. Thank you, Captain Hayes. We'll document this in the minutes. One coaster left a perfect ring on my copy of the agenda. I slid it away, smearing the watermark with my thumb. Appreciate the diligence, I said. Across town, just as I was folding the packet into my briefcase, a process server stepped into Victor's living room. The story came to me later, through a neighbor who worked catering that night. Victor was at his cocktail cart, pouring something brown and expensive. The doorbell rang. Mr. Collins? The man asked. Yes. He handed him the envelope, nodded, and left. Elaine turned from the sofa. What is it? Victor ripped it open. His voice went flat. Occupancy covenant. No contractors without authorization. He can't. Zarina brittle. He's bluffing. Evans stared at the floor. He doesn't bluff. And that was the end of that conversation. Back in the boardroom, the chair thanked me again, moving briskly to the next agenda item: maintenance contracts, budget revisions, the safe rituals of procedure. I sat quietly through the rest, a ghost of courtesy in a chair of rules. When the meeting adjourned, I waited for the last handshake before packing up. Outside, the night was cool, steady. I paused under the portico, inhaled. The hardest part of command had never been making decisions. It was learning to say, copy, instead of I hope. I'd said my piece. The rest would move like clockwork. As I reached the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Evan again. I didn't answer. Then it buzzed a second time, text message this time. Evan, can we talk off stage? The ellipsis sat like a peace offering wrapped in hesitation. I stared at it a long while before pocketing the phone. The asphalt glistened with a thin sheen of rain, reflecting the club lights in warped halos. Somewhere behind me, the cleaning crew reset the meeting room, stacking chairs, erasing evidence. Minutes filed. Motion carried. Paper bound to consequence. And across town, a manila envelope sat open on Victor's bar. The tent looked different in daylight, same canvas, same fairy lights, but sunlight has a way of stripping pretense. The air carried the smell of chafing dishes and hydrangeas. A county newspaper photographer hovered near the buffet, pretending to frame centerpieces while waiting for something quotable. Victor stood at the microphone, blazer off, sleeves rolled, smile tight. We all value progress, he said. New facilities, new systems, a better experience for all our members and partners. Applause scattered like gravel. He leaned on the podium. The future favors those who adapt. I rose. Clarification. The MC blinked. Captain Hayes, 2 minutes? I nodded once. Victor hesitated, then gestured graciously, the way men do when they're sure they still own the room. I walked to the front, folder in hand. I'm Walter Hayes. I keep a modest home. I also advise a national safety manufacturer on municipal deployments. I paused, feeling the ripple before it came. I'm compensated for my time, not my past. $40,000 a month. With that comes NDAs and a bias toward silence. Gasps. Forks stopped clinking. A phone camera clicked from somewhere near the hydrangeas. I met the crowd's eyes, one face at a time. Silence isn't permission, I said. It's discipline. But tonight, for transparency, I'm speaking. The MC shifted in place. Victor's smile twitched. Our Ethics Policy Section 4B requires us to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, I continued. A committee member steering a bidder? That's not modernization. That's a problem. Oh. I opened the folder and clicked the projector remote. The club's screen flickered to life, showing a scanned page. The occupancy covenant Ruth's signature faint but intact. This governs my house, I said evenly. There will be no unauthorized work. Not because I'm clinging, but because my late wife and I wrote rules to outlive us. The screen light glowed pale across the linen tablecloths, soft as confession. Serena's whisper sliced the silence. He's performing. Evan's voice came quiet, low, but it carried. He's telling the truth. No one breathed for a beat. Then the photographer's flash went off, white and unforgiving. A donor near the front raised his hand. Captain Hayes, will the Ruth Hayes grant continue? Yes, I said. Expanded by one department this year. We measure ourselves by gear placed in trucks, not trophies placed on mantles. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was steady, the kind of sound people make when they've recognized something solid after too much varnish. I stepped away from the mic. My hands didn't shake. Across the tent, Evan sat forward, shoulders tight but eyes clear. He wasn't proud, not yet, but he was awake. Victor stood frozen behind the podium, face neutral, watching the order he'd built tilt out from under him. The silver serving spoons along the buffet glinted under the afternoon light. One was slightly bent, reflecting the scene in a warped line. Victor's grip on the podium, Serena's forced smile. Evan's silence turned to understanding. For a heartbeat, I caught Ruth's reflection in the projector glass hair, messy, proud. I almost said her name. The MC finally cleared his throat. Thank you, Captain Hayes, and thank you, Mr. Collins, for your remarks. Polite limbo, the sound of reputations resetting themselves. I walked back to my seat, nodding to the photographer as I passed. He didn't ask for a quote. He didn't need one. The image would do the talking. By dessert, Victor's phone was face down and buzzing. By evening, 2 emails waited in his inbox, subject lines that start careers and end them. Bid withdrawal. Ethics inquiry, response required. Outside, the tent lights came on early, trying to make daylight behave like evening. It never does. The echo of that luncheon lasted longer than applause ever could. By Monday morning, the local column in the Summit Gazette ran under the headline, Heritage versus Hype, When Progress Forgets Its Manners. The first paragraph wasn't about me. It was about tone, about how modernization, without respect, corrodes community faster than time. But everyone in Maple Ridge knew who the column was for. By noon, 2 sponsors had quietly withdrawn from Victor's renovation project. The ethics review froze the rest. Contractors pulled bids. The polite calls came next, filled with phrases like timing, image, strategic pause. Victor's phone must have buzzed like a nest of wasps. By Wednesday, Serena's parents were back to dining at home, their usual table at the club sitting empty under flickering lights. They'd become specters of their own ambition, visible but untouchable. And Evan, he finally called, not to defend, not to explain, just to meet. We picked the kind of place where no one performs. A chrome-edged diner off Route 24, coffee refills, pie under glass domes, the hum of the refrigerator like a patient animal. He slid into the booth across from me. No preamble. I didn't know about the retainer, he said. You weren't supposed to. He frowned. Why? I stirred my coffee, slow circles. Because money makes some men louder and other men small. I didn't want to change your shape. He looked down at the napkin dispenser, turning it so the reflection fractured his face. Victor's getting hammered. Sponsors pulled. The club paused everything. Consequences aren't revenge, I said. They're replies. He nodded once, eyes tired. He keeps saying it's a witch hunt. Witches usually light their own fires, I said. For a while, neither of us spoke. The waitress passed by and topped off both cups. The smell of burnt toast and vanilla creamer hung between us. He finally said it quiet, like someone stepping into cold water. I stood there while she called your life clinging. I didn't say a thing. You said something just now. He swallowed. That doesn't feel like enough. It isn't. Not yet. He met my eyes then. The same blue Ruth used to claim came from her side of the family. What happens next? Boundaries, I said, and patience. He nodded again, slower this time, as if trying the word on for fit. A sugar packet slipped from the holder and landed on the table between us. He lined it up with the others until they sat in a neat row, like tiny dominoes waiting for a push. I thought of him at 8 years old, trying to lift a hose line at a station open house, his small arms shaking, face red, refusing to quit until I stepped beside him and took some of the weight. He'd learned weight before he learned strength. Now he was learning both again. He looked up. Mom would have hated this. She would have made brownies for the entire ethics committee, I said. He laughed a short, real sound. Yeah, she would have. The check came on a silver tray. I slid my card halfway across. He stopped it with his. Split it, he said. We signed the same slip, 2 names side by side, no debt between them. When we stepped into the parking lot, the October air bit hard. He zipped his jacket, looked at me like he was choosing every word. Dad, he said, tell me what making it right actually looks like. The house was quiet again. Ruth's kind of quiet. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint smell of lavender rising from the cedar chest down the hall. I sat at the dining table, same one she'd chosen 30 years ago, the one that had heard every argument worth remembering. Across from me sat Evan, sleeves rolled up, eyes rimmed red but steady. Between us, a yellow legal pad, my Mont Blanc pen, and the silence of a man deciding who he's going to be next. I slid the pad toward him. These are the conditions. He scanned the list, jaw tightening. This looks like sentencing. I tapped the pen against the table. It's restoration and boundaries. His eyes moved down the page. Written apology to the club and the volunteer departments. 60 hours of community service VFW or the county food pantry. Repayment of the club's ethics review fee through Serena's family, not mine. Counseling, both of you, if she agrees. He looked up. Serena won't do service hours. Then you do yours, I said. Her choices can no longer draft on my name. He exhaled, long and uneven. Dad, she's furious. Says I'm choosing optics over family. That's her word for accountability. He half laughed. Yeah, she doesn't like accountability. We sat a while. The afternoon light made slow patterns across the table. Ruth's china gleamed behind the cabinet glass untouched, intact, watching. Evan looked at the last line again. Repayment. Yes. He nodded slowly. I'll sell the BMW. You don't have to. I do. We bought it with an advance from Victor. Contingent on the pool contract. His voice flattened. That was built on rot. He reached for the pen. His hand trembled when the tip met paper. I poured coffee, waited until the shaking stopped. When he finished, I slid the letter from beneath the pad and folded it once, crisp and clean. The envelope waited beside a coaster with a faded ring from another conversation years ago, another moment when someone had to choose between pride and repair. I wrote the address on the front, Maple Ridge Country Club Ethics Committee. He looked at it, then at me. What if this doesn't fix it? It's not supposed to fix it, I said. It's supposed to prove you're willing to. The clock on the wall clicked once, loud enough to mark the shift. I'll drive it over tomorrow, he said quietly. Good. And Evan? He looked up. We meet Sundays, 18:30. VFW Hall. You'll log your hours. I'll bring coffee. No lectures, no scorecards. Just work. He smiled. Tired but real. Same as old times. Not quite, I said. This time you're carrying your end. He nodded. The smallest hint of pride crossed his face, earned, not borrowed. I stood, placed the envelope in a small stack by the door labeled out. The smell of lavender lingered again, faint and forgiving. When I turned back, he was still sitting there, staring at the empty mug. You all right? I asked. Yeah, he said, then hesitated. No, but better. That's how better starts. He rose, slipped on his jacket, and tucked the envelope under his arm. Dad? Yes? He took a breath. Thanks for not yelling. Yelling's easy, I said. Paper's harder. He laughed once, a low sound, and left. That night, the porch light caught his silhouette, standing alone for 12 minutes, phone in hand. He was sending Serena the terms. I didn't need to hear the response to know what kind it would be. The VFW hall smelled like burnt coffee and floor wax, the same scent every hall in America seems to share. The bulletin board near the door sagged under the weight of flyers, fish fries, raffles, missing dogs, a faded one from 2016 announcing Veterans Movie Night Popcorn Free. A single crooked thumbtack held it in place, stubborn as habit. Evan stood by the microphone. The old vet sat with folded arms and styrofoam cups, not hostile, just waiting to see if this was going to be another speech or something real. He cleared his throat. "I kept quiet when I should have said enough," he said, eyes fixed on the back wall. "I'm sorry." The sound hung in the air, uncertain. One man clapped, then another. Not a wave. A weather change. Afterward, a gray-haired Marine named Reggie slapped Evan on the shoulder. "Showing up's half the sermon, kid." Evan smiled, small and tired. "I'll keep showing up then." That week, he started his hours. Tuesday at the food pantry, he packed boxes until his shirt stuck to his back. The older volunteers teased him, "College boy finally sweating for the right reasons." And by the end of the shift, they were trading bad jokes about canned peas and dented soup lids. Friday, he joined me at dawn to load gear into the truck for a delivery run. A rural volunteer department outside Morristown had applied for one of the Ruth Hayes thermal imagers. We drove through fog and silence, the kind that feels earned. When we arrived, the chief, a man my age with soot permanently lining his nails, shook Evan's hand and held it. "You show up, you matter," he said. Evan nodded, eyes wet but steady. "I'll remember that." I watched him lift the box, careful but strong, and I saw the same boy from years ago, 8 years old, trying to drag a hose line across the bay floor. He'd learned form now, strength after weight. Back home that night, I scrolled social media, not habit, just curiosity. Serena had posted from Scottsdale, poolside, wide sunglasses, drink in hand. Caption, "Growth is greater than guilt." The comments told their own story. Bold, considering. Maybe start with empathy? Not everything's a brand. Oh? I shut the app. Evan turned off his phone too. "Batteries, lens cloths, charger," he murmured, counting the leftover gear from the trip. His tone wasn't penitent, just present. I didn't correct or congratulate. The community was doing that better than I ever could. That Sunday, we stood outside the VFW before the shift. The air smelled of diesel and fall leaves. He wiped his hands on his jeans. "Dad, do you think any of this changes who I was that night at the club?" "No," I said. "It just proves who you are now." He thought about that, nodded once, and headed inside. I watched him disappear through the door. Shoulders squared, head down, not for shame, but for focus. Inside, I heard Reggie laugh and say, "Hey, college boy, you're on donut duty." The sound made me smile. The rest of the day passed like honest work always does, slow, physical, cleansing. When I dropped him off that evening, he raised a hand. "Same time next week?" "Same time." He walked toward his car, no BMW anymore, just a used Ford pickup that fit him better. While Evan stacked cases in the VFW storage closet, my phone buzzed. A new email banner slid across the screen. Subject: Ethics Review, Findings and Sanctions. I didn't open it yet. Some closures deserve to arrive in silence. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe. Even if it only takes a second, what time is it for you, and where are you listening? The hall smelled like coffee, polish, and slow-cooked beans, VFW perfume. Wood paneling gleamed under the flicker of ceiling fans. Crockpots lined the folding tables like sentries, their cords coiled neatly against the wall. At the front, an old banner fluttered in the AC. Ruth Hayes Memorial Scholarship Night. Her photo sat next to a boot full of carnations, red, white, and a single pink one tucked in the middle. The pink was Evan's idea. She'd like that, he'd said. Before the ceremony began, the projector hummed and lit up the wall. The club's letterhead filled the screen, Ethics Committee findings. The summary was brief, surgical. Victor Marlowe barred from committee positions for 24 months. All pending bids invalidated. To be rebid under independent review. A low murmur moved through the crowd like a gust. then settled into approval. No applause. Just a quiet understanding that order had rebalanced itself. Evan sat in the front row, hands clasped tight. Serena's chair next to him was empty. She'd declined the invitation. The excuse was travel. The truth was consequence. When the MC nodded, Evan stood. He didn't look at the audience, just at the back wall, where Ruth's framed photo caught a sliver of light. "I let other people define my future," he began, voice small but sure. "I stayed quiet when I should have said enough. I'm sorry, Dad. And I'm sorry to everyone who waits at home while someone they love runs toward fire." The room didn't move. Then one clap. Then another. Not a standing ovation. Not pity, just acknowledgement. Weather changing again. He stepped down, and I took his place. The omega on my wrist ticked in the rhythm of a pocket watch, slow and human. "My wife believed boundaries make love last longer," I said. "We wrote ours. We enforced ours. Tonight isn't about punishment. It's about what we fund with our behavior." Someone in the back whispered, "Amen," quiet as paper folding. I lifted a small envelope from the table. "This scholarship goes to a student who repaired his grandmother's porch after a storm. No grant, no GoFundMe, just a hammer and time. Stewardship isn't grand. It's consistent." A boy no older than 17 stood. His hands trembled when he reached for the envelope. I steadied his wrist the same way I'd steadied Evan's years ago during a house fire drill, gentle, firm, permission without words. When I let go, the hall filled with applause again, fine-grained, real. The MC closed the evening with a short thank you. People lined up for coffee refills, shook Evan's hand, clapped my shoulder, and admired Ruth's photo. Victor and Serena's names didn't surface once. Absence was its own sentence. As the crowd thinned, Evan came to stand beside me. His face was wet, not from shame this time, but relief. "She'd be proud," he said. "She'd be practical," I said. "She'd tell us to stack the chairs before we go." We did row by row, no hurry, no fanfare. When the hall finally emptied, I walked over to the light switch. There was a faint grease pencil X drawn on the plate from some forgotten repair years ago. I ran my thumb over it before flicking the switch down. The room fell dark, except for Ruth's photo, faint in the glow of the emergency exit sign. Outside, the air was cool enough to make breath visible. Evan locked the door behind us. I looked at him. "You keeping Sundays?" "Everyone," he said. We stood in silence for a while, listening to the hum of cars on Route 24, the night neither too loud nor too still. For the first time in a long time, the air felt exactly as Ruth wanted it, quiet. Later, when the hall dimmed and the crockpots went cold, I walked into that night and thought, boundaries first, then love. It was finally ours to keep.